Tim from Mobile, Alabama. Or it's Mobile, isn't it, how you pronounce it, I guess?
Mobile.
Mobile. Wondering if Mr. Mantell had any good Gerald Brisco stories from the road. Loved the podcast. Now, I should briefly say that we have told the story a couple of times where he broke up the fight between you and Lars Anderson. So, other than that, do you have any good old Jerry Brisco stories?
Well, did I tell the story about Ernie Ladd?
And Jerry?
Yeah.
I don't think so, no.
All right, settle down, kids. Pull up a chair, throw a log on the fire. Jerry and Jack Brisco were co-owners at Championship Wrestling from Florida. And one night we went to Jacksonville, and I went with Ernie. Because Ernie liked me, and he would take a little Cessna plane, and he would contract that to fly him to Jacksonville because he didn't want to ride 250 miles or 260 miles on a Thursday, and I didn't either. So sometimes he would let me fly for $25. Sometimes he would let me fly for $0. But he liked to talk to me, and he enjoyed, our conversation. And I really enjoyed talking to him. So he had made a deal with Eddie Graham that he would make X number of dollars if he came to Florida. Well, he came to Florida and he wasn't making exactly what the agreement was. This was before contracts, but he wasn't making anywhere close to what he thought he should make. Let's just put a figure on it back in those days, 1,500. Well, he may have been making 1,000, 1,100, but not to 15. But what would happen is that what he was lacking would be bonus to him on the same check, but he's not getting it. So he wanted to leave, and he says, and he did it right by the book. He gave his notice. He was going to leave. And all he asked them to do was don't put a camera in any of these arenas because he didn't want it recording him losing to anybody. And that was a standard practice back in those days because, he didn't want that showing in Japan. He didn't want it showing in Texas. He didn't want it showing in Vince McMahon land, nowhere. Because it showed him losing, and he didn't want to see that. So he went to Jacksonville, and I was on early, and I got back and I got dressed, and they come in and they said, "You're on next." And he had told me all this that afternoon, I think, but he went out there and he was back in like 7 minutes, and he was against, I think, Jerry Brisco or Jack, one of them. And he was back. And I went, what happened? He says, let's go. Let's get out of here. And we got in the car. I didn't know what was going on. We got in the car and he called a cab, took us back to the airport. It wasn't an airport. It was a private, airfield. And he told me on the way out there, he said, I told them not to have any cameras there. He said, I'll put over anybody they want me to put over. Just don't put it on tape and we're fine. But he looked up and the red light on the camera was on. He said, whoop, I told him not to. He just hit the floor and kept walking to the dressing room. It's supposed to be like a 20-minute match, but it was only 7 because he cut it short and got in the car, and they were mad as hell about it. So as we're riding back, now he's talking more and more and more. And he says, I forgot how we ended up over there. No, he took me to my car, right? And then he called home, and his wife told him that the Briscoe had called and they want to meet with him tonight. So after he dropped me out, which was somewhere north of Tampa, he drove down to the Sportatorium. And the Sportatorium didn't have a parking lot. It had it did, but it was sand. And so he told me this the next day. So Well, let me tell you, the next day I got a call about 9 o'clock, and that was Brian. I can't remember his last name now, but he said, "You hear what?" No, it was Mike Graham. He said, "You hear what happened to the Briscos and Ernie?" I went, "No, what happened? You hadn't heard about it?" No. He said, "Well, you will." And what had happened, Ernie, they had sent him word. He had called them, and they said, "Meet us down at the office," because they flew back too. "Meet us back at the office and we'll discuss this." He said, "Okay." So he was going down, and he said, "I pulled up close to the office right there in front of that parking lot, and there they were. They were out walking, smoking the doobie." And he said, "Okay." And he said he got out of the car, and he said they were really upset. They were fit to be tied, he said. "You son of a bitch, you MF-er, this, that, and the other. Why in the hell did you do that up there? Blah, 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 blah." He said, whoa, guys, whoa. Calm down. He said, "Listen, why don't we smoke a doobie? Then let's talk about it." Well, yeah, they wanted a doobie. So he got them another doobie. And I don't know if they were smoking before he got there or not. They liked the doobie. So they got out and they started smoking the joints, and they started talking about it. And they both got in front of him, and one went around behind him, and he said, "Uh-oh, now I know what's going to happen." So he said, "Wait a minute, guys. Wait a minute." He got in the trunk of his car where he said the doobie was and pulled out a lug wrench. And he says one grabbed him from the front, one grabbed him from the back. And when he went to hit Jerry, I think Jerry was in the back. Rest in peace, Jerry. He hit Jerry.
Jerry's alive. Jack died.
Oh, Jack died. Jack took it in the head, I think knocked him out. And then Jerry took it front ways, knocked him out. Now he's got two lifeless, damn near Briscos that were bleeding like a waterfall. And he said he picked them up, threw them in the trunk of his car, not even the back seat, threw them in the trunk, closed the lid, and drove them to a hospital. Got up to the hospital, opened the trunk, got them out, and they were sitting there. He didn't throw them; they weren't still knocked out, but they were really goofy. Put them there and drove off. No police was there, nobody, nothing. And he said that was the end of it. Now, they've since made up since then, but that was what happened to Ernie Ladd and the Briscos, and Jerry was a part of it.
Did Ernie ever work for Florida and Eddie Graham again after that?
No, it was getting ready to fold up at that time. WWE was so strong. They weren't drawing. And what WWE had done was raided the territory like they did everywhere else. They raided Texas, and they took Kerry Von Erich. They took the top one, and they raided Florida. They took Dusty, and they took a lot of them. And a lot of places, they just took the top names because they'd make more money in WWF. And Florida was closing up and losing money. So it probably stayed in business about another year or so.